Family Jockey is a bit of a special game. It's not the first horse racing game, but it's the game that put the genre on the map. The genre never made it big outside of Japan, but for a while in Japan it was absolutely huge, especially in the 90s. And this is where it gets its start. European-style horse racing caught on in Japan pretty much the moment the country opened up to Europeans. The sport is still extremely popular in Japan, too. As you might guess, Family Jockey's all about managing a single horse through a series of races. If you do well enough, then you move up the ranks, taking on longer, more difficult courses. Your ultimate goal is to reach the G1 series of races and win the Emperor's Cup. When you start the game, you're given the choice between race only or family game. The family game lets 4 additional players bet on the outcome of races. Or I suppose you could just bet on yourself to win or place. On the betting screen, each player can place up to 3 bets, and not all players have to bet. You can always just hit start when somebody's finished. If a player runs out of money, they're just not allowed to bet anymore, and if all the players run out of money, it skips the betting screen entirely. But the betting is actually the least important part of the game. It's its own little side game that's completely unconnected from the actual game. That's why you can just select race only. When you hit start to begin a game, the first thing you have to do is pick which horse you're going to ride. You have 16 options, and you'll have to press select to switch between screens. All of the horses are based on real-life horses that were active in the mid-80s. So if that player in 1987 had a particular favorite horse, there was a good chance they could ride it. There's actually 64 separate horses in the game. It's just that you can only choose between 16. All of the horses are rated on 6 stats. From left to right, there's speed, which determines the horse's top speed, although to be honest, it always seems to cap out at 90 kilometers per hour regardless. Stamina is how hard that horse can run before it tires out. It's primarily what you're managing in the race to do well, so a high stamina is a good pick for when you're starting out. Guts is how much the horse can push other horses around. The pack can act a lot like bumper cars as the horses collide and push each other out of the way. You also lose a bit of stamina when the horses collide. A high guts score minimizes that loss. Jump isn't important to start out, but it becomes very important later on. Some of the courses are steeplechases where there will be obstacles you have to leap over. And your jump score and your speed when you jump determines if you can clear it. These aren't common in the early races, but as you move up the ranks, they become much more common. Turbo is how much speed you gain when you whip the horse. It's useful for rapid acceleration, and a high turbo score means that you don't have to whip your horse as much, which helps their stamina. Type is a little bit unusual. The higher that number, the less that the horse is affected by adverse track conditions. A horse with a high type isn't affected by mud as much. The inside corners of the track are mud pits, so you can cut the corners a bit more closely if this is high. This is also the only stat you can't improve as you race. So if you want to take advantage of it, you'll need to take a horse with a high type right from the start. Once you've picked a horse you'd like to use, hit A to continue on to the next screen, and there you'll find out what race you're going to be running, the distance, and the track conditions. You can also press A to bring up your horse's stats. The races in the G1 series are all real races, but before that they're made up. When you get to the next screen, you're told what the odds makers think of the race. The double circle's their favorite to win, the circle's their second favorite, the triangle's their third. But I found that these guys aren't very accurate when it comes to their guesses. So don't worry about it if nobody likes you. You also find out what the purse is, and what the race record is. You can also see the colors of the horses and jockeys. Player 1 is always the guy in pink riding the white horse. Finally, it's time to race. All of the races have 6 horses, and your opponents are randomly selected from the pool. The controls are pretty simple. The A button whips the horse, and up and down changes what lane you're in. The horses move smoothly, but there are distinct lanes that they run in. So if you tap up, you don't just go up a little bit, you go all the way to the next lane. Initially, the races just take you out of the starting gate and around the corner. But as you move up the ranks, the courses get longer, and eventually you'll have to do an entire lap of the track. You always are in the inside gate as well, though due to the mud puddle on the corners, you might not want to stay there. When the gate opens, you need to whip your horse pretty quickly to get him up to speed, and then the best strategy is to coast a ways, only whipping as you start to fall back a little. There's actually multiple reasons for this. First, you need to maintain your stamina for the entire race. Second, the game tries to keep all of the horses in view, so if you're way out ahead, you don't get to see as much of the track that's coming up. It's no big deal for corners, but there's other things that might require immediate reaction. Third, you want to collect power-ups, and if you're further back, you have a little bit more opportunity to get them. The power-ups are these circles with a letter in them, and they permanently improve the corresponding stat for your horse by 1. And to reiterate, those stats are speed, stamina, guts, jump, and turbo. If you want to make progress in the game, you have to collect those. Unfortunately, which power-ups appear and where they appear is totally random. Speed seemed to be a more common pickup, though I didn't see an improvement in the kilometers per hour at the bottom of the screen. There are 2 more pickups. The star restores some of your stamina, and the skull takes some away. The jumps are the trickiest part to get down on the courses. If you get bumped, you could lose all the speed and wind up crashing right into the hedge. That'll cost you a lot of stamina and time, and also possibly permanently injure your horse. You don't get any horrifying cutscene with that, you just get a game over. You have to place in the top 4 to be able to continue, though only the top 3 get prize money. And you have to collect a certain amount of prize money to move up to the next rank of races. You'll know you've moved up when the background music changes, and personally I couldn't be happier when Camptown Races ends. Family Jockey was a pretty successful game, and Namco ported it twice in the next few years. The PC Engine and the Game Boy got a version. That said, there's another series of horse racing games that will appear on the Famicom, and that's the real star of the genre. Looking at Family Jockey, I have to say, would I play this again? And the answer is yeah. It's not brilliant, and it's pretty simple, but I think that's part of what makes it work. I could see myself popping it in and playing out a jockey career for half an hour, then putting it away again. Admittedly, the visual presentation isn't much. Namco's decision to stick to the 3,900 yen price point for their games meant that they had to use smaller ROMs. But there's fun to be had in Family Jockey. This is the kind of game that I made Famidaily for. It's an overlooked game where you have to peel back the surface a little bit. And inside, you find something that's kind of nice.